There's something I've noticed. If you steal somebody's stuff, you're a jerk. If you're in charge of some government office or company and you steal from everybody, you're a stain on society. But hit the sweet spot and steal from lots of people all by yourself and get away with it, and suddenly you're a hero. This video is brought to you by who else but Magellan TV, the documentary streaming service made by filmmakers with more than 3,000 titles to their name. I've spent, like a year recommending the best documentaries from their history catalog. I feel like you ought to know they have just as much selection in nature, art, science, technology, and more. This felt like a good opportunity to reach into their true crime department. I think you'll enjoy their series Crimes That Made History. It takes a look at some of the most famous criminals of the last 200 years, from Jack the Ripper to Jim Jones, and doesn't just give you the lurid description of events, but really examines the way that high-profile crime and the media covering it have shaped public consciousness over the years. You can watch it for free, along with anything else I've ever recommended, by signing up for a 30-day free trial at MagellanTV.com/JackRackham. London, 1708. It's a hard-knock life for Jack. He was lucky enough to survive infant mortality, but his dad kicked the bucket, so Jack went off to a workhouse at the age of 6. The little lad is out to make an honest living and apprenticed to a chairmaker who ends up... So Jack grabs his bootstraps and moves across town to a different chairmaker who ends up... So at age 10, Jack is already having to make a career change, but like his mother always said, what would Jesus do? So he became a carpenter, or apprenticed to one because he's a child. This carpenter, it just so happens, knows the Muffin Man because he lives just off Drury Lane. Drury Lane, which happens to be a real place, used to be a high-end neighborhood, but by the time Jack moved in, it was London's red light district. Who knows what that Muffin Man was getting into? So when Jack grows up, he's still pale, short, and stuttering, but he's street smart and smooth as butter. He woos the ladies at the Black Lion Tavern, a hotbed of cutthroats and debauchery. In fact, he takes a fancy to a certain lady of the night named Edgeworth Bess, and for once, there is a bright, shining light in his life cutting through the London haze. His days may be filled with sweat and poverty, but his nights become a whirlwind of drinking, dancing, and romancing. But all that starts to catch up to him pretty quickly. He's showing up to work hungover and snapping at his boss, and his money's starting to leave him faster than it comes in. "Bess," he says, "if I don't get some cash in my wallet, I'm afraid it's back to the construction site for good, and Uber won't be invented for another 2 centuries. Ever considered making money under the table? A little nudge, a little pinch? Why, Bess, I'm surprised at you. Pick something no one will know is missing. Quick, easy, and tax-free." "All right, Jackie, easy, Jackie, nice and simple." "Hello, sir, I'm here with the invoice for the work we completed."
"Oh, yes, let me grab a pen. Let's see here.
Nice. Clock, portrait, too big. Pen, take his pen and run, no.
Got it. All right, now what did you...
Spoon! What was that? Thank you, have a nice day. No one ever caught him for that, so he kept pushing the envelope to see what he could get away with, and the heists got bigger and bigger. He brought in Bess and his brother Tom to fuel his new gang's burglary spree. In just a few months, he quit his day job and invited Bess to move in with him to a street uptown with the city's most famous inns and the future homes of aristocrats and millionaires. Everything was coming up Millhouse until the day he met a man named Jonathan Wild. Wild was London's self-proclaimed thief-taker general, the greatest bounty hunter in the land. London's population had been ballooning, and the disjointed police force, or the closest thing they had to one anyway, couldn't keep up with the rise in crime, even if its leaders weren't all taking bribes. And so the void was filled by Jonathan Wild, a local hero who had exposed the corrupt head of police and taken it upon himself to assemble a task force of do-gooders. Every day, he returned hundreds of pounds of stolen goods and brought the thieves who took them to justice. So he sits down with Jack and says he wants to hire him as a bounty hunter.
That's cute. No, if you want to do crime in my city, you're gonna do it through me.
Plot twist, Wild was actually the kingpin of the largest organized crime syndicate in London. Those criminals he was locking up behind bars were all freelancers, or whatever was left of rival gangs, making him king undisputed of the underground. Trying to sell stolen goods on a large scale was challenging, so he didn't. Just about everything he stole, he would return in a few days' time for a reward. And if any of his men had something to say about giving up most of their money to Wild, well, then a bunch of evidence on them would suddenly show up at the police station, and Wild would claim another reward for turning them in. Jack says he's gonna go it alone, though, and Wild says,
"You're gonna regret this."
In a run of bad luck, Jack's brother Tom gets caught red-handed, and because this is Georgian London, they might just hang him, so he squeals on Jack and Bess. They go on the lam, and Jack runs to their good friend William to sell off his stuff and get some liquid capital. Jack stays at the bar while he's waiting to play Skittles with some guy, but when he steps out to take a leak, he comes back with a constable.
Mr. Wild sends his regards.
But it turns out, this is where Jack gets to shine. He's a decent thief, but his true calling is escape artist. While he's sitting in jail awaiting further questioning, he climbs up to the ceiling, breaks through the roof, and lowers down his bed sheets as a rope. Everybody heard him on the way out. There's a big crowd come to see the commotion, so Jack sneaks in, still wearing leg irons, and goes, "Look up there! I think I see him! By God, he's handsome!" A few months later, he gets to try again. He gets caught pickpocketing, and Bess comes to visit him, and the jailers go, "Wait a minute, aren't you his accomplice?" And they throw her in the cell. They make it to court this time and get sentenced to prison, but somehow they got a hold of a file and spent days whittling through their handcuffs until, "I've got it! Quickly, let's away!" Come on, seriously? New plan. Jack takes up work as a highwayman on the outskirts of town with Blue Skin Blake. I love that all these guys sound like pirates or gangsters or Wild West outlaws. They're safe outside London, but they've still got to make the run to town to sell their stuff, so Jack goes back to his old friend William. William asks him, "Jack, you look like shite. What about you sleeping? Some wagon off the road. Sorry, I can't tell you more than that. You need some proper shut-eye. I've got a spare couch. Hell, you can take the bed if you want to. I just can't stand to see you like this. Sorry, mate. I know you'd love to have me in your bed, but I can't stay long. Cheerio."
Do you know where he's hiding?
No, but I know someone who might. So Bess finds herself approached by a stranger one night who offers to buy her drinks. He gets her talking, she's venting about everything that's happened in the last few weeks, and she spills where Jack is. Wild's men drag Jack to court on 3 counts of robbery. Except there was no evidence on the first one, and no evidence for the second one, so Wild goes out and does the job of the police detectives and the prosecution and digs up a bunch of evidence and gives it to the court before the third case can get thrown out. Right. Seems here you're found guilty of breaking and entering. To the gallows with you. Jack now finds himself in the infamous Newgate prison on death row. And this time it's Bess who gets to pull off the great escape. She brings a friend to go visit Jack, hopefully in some kind of disguise this time, and starts chatting up the guards. Jack then slips through the bars, gives the ladies a wink, and runs off in women's clothing.
"I'm still breaking up with you, love."
Now everyone in London is starting to take note of the man who broke out of prison 3 different times. I mean, think about it. He's like if Houdini let someone else design the death traps. He hit that sweet spot, a handsome Cockney man leading a daring life of non-violent crime who seemed to be... Jack, however, seems to have bought into that invincibility, because instead of skipping town, he goes right back to playing one jump ahead of the lawmen. He lasted a little over a week. This time, they put him in the most secure room in Newgate, a room so special it had its own name, the Castle. They slapped on his leg irons and literally chained him to the floor, and Jack told them, "Gentlemen, you've really outdone yourselves this time. I mean, look, I can just use this and they'll pop right off."
No, drop it!
Meanwhile, Jack's old partner, Blue Skin Blake, was being tried in court. Wild throws a bunch of evidence at him that is entirely inconsistent with the evidence he used to imprison Jack, but the court says, "Close enough. To the gallows, ta-ra!"
Well, shoot. I guess if I'm going down anyway...
And he slashes Wild's throat in the middle of the courtroom. This courtroom, it so happens, was right next door to Newgate, and all the guards are on red alert scrambling to contain the situation next door. So Jack quickly picks off his handcuffs and the extra chains they slapped onto him, although the leg cuffs wouldn't budge, so he had to climb with them up the chimney, dislodge the bar in the middle, go up through the room they used to keep the Jacobites in, break through 6 barred doors into the prison chapel, climb up onto the roof, and realize he was 60 feet off the ground without his bedsheets. Back through the church, past the doors, wave to the Jacobites, down the chimney, grab the sheets, run up, and do it all over again. After he got out, he ended up seeking refuge in a barn and explaining he'd been arrested for failing to pay child support until somebody finally took pity on him and broke off the leg irons. Now, with that nearly impossible escape from death row behind him, he figured what the hell, it can't get any worse than that, so he goes back to London and broke into a pawn shop to dress up as a wealthy gentleman and spend some time living it up with a couple mistresses. A couple days later, he was arrested blind drunk on the street. This time, the guards say, okay, clearly it doesn't matter where we put you, we just can't lose sight of you. So we're weighing you down with a 300-pound weight in the middle of this room, in the middle of the building, where we can watch you from all sides. Can we watch him too? Yes, get in line. That's not a joke, by the way. He was such a celebrity that flocks of people came to the prison to visit him, and the guards actually charged admission fees. The king's painter came out to paint his portrait. People wrote letters to King George asking him to spare this kid from Drury Lane, and eventually, the court made a deal with him. If he'd snitch on his associates, he could have his sentence commuted. And Jack's thinking was, nah, I'm gonna be out of here in a week, and those guys would kill me if I told on them. This time, he got closer to the noose than ever before. He couldn't do much with a 300-pound weight on him, but they couldn't bring him to the scaffold without taking it off. And if Blueskin Blake could smuggle a penknife into a courtroom, Jack could make it work in prison. They say as he was brought to the noose, a third of London was watching. And as he's marching forward, he starts to cut through the ropes, and the guards go, oh, almost missed that one. They bring him up, put the rope over his neck, and drop him. But he's not dead yet. He's strangled for 15 minutes and drops to the ground, but his friends know that since they didn't break his neck, there's a good chance they can get him to a doctor in time. But just then, someone in the crowds go,
The cops are gonna cut up his body! Don't let them cut him up!
and the crowd storms the body, meaning no one could get close enough to pull him out to safety. But Jack continued to be the biggest sensation in London because no one had invented the idea of too soon. His life story made it to the stage within 2 weeks. He was in operas, journals, biographies, pantomimes. Everyone was talking about the little Drury ragamuffin who made it big. And somehow, a burglar became the brave and brilliant hero of the everyman. You might rightly wonder why you've never heard of him. Well, the government felt pretty uncomfortable about a criminal they executed being the champion of the British people, so they wouldn't let any play with his name in the title hit the box office. But the floodgates had already been opened, and so, while his name faded into obscurity, Jack Sheppard became an idea. He became the lovable rogue, the bad boy who won't be tied down, the renegade fighting for freedom. But holy crap, does he need to be on Netflix.